So today we have Most Honorable Congressman Pete Sessions in Sarangpur, one of the most holiest pilgrim places in the Hindu faith, especially the Swaminarayan Sampradaya. It's a small village where we have more peacocks than people, surrounded by nature, and more importantly, surrounded by the nature of peace of all the saints who are being trained here, and also all the spiritual people in millions who are inspired from this beautiful temple, its premises, and the village around. So, thank you very much for coming all the way from Texas, displacing your entire schedule, coming in this heat, and being with us here today. It's lovely to have you with us, Congressman Pete Sessions.
Thank you very much. The Holy Father has for several times come to America, and I have met with him. And in essence, he's come to my home, and I felt like it was important as part of me, my learning, my deeper faith of not only understanding how important BAPS is, but as it relates to so many people that live in the United States around the world. And it was important for me to come to his home, your home, to see not only the processes that take place, but the spiritual bounding that provides so many people with the basis of understanding of balance and opportunity. And what I have seen is deep faith, a process that sustains itself and moves forward with the next generations as these young men come forward.
So, Congressman Sessions, you have known BAPS for quite a long while, and now coming to the place of its origins, source, into remote villages. So, how has your understanding enhanced? You know something, and you know some people, and now coming to an original place and feeling and talking and seeing, how has your understanding of BAPS enhanced?
It is exactly as you suggest, a journey. It's a deepness of looking and paging through a little bit more every time. When I came to Congress 28 years ago, I knew that I would be associated with Hindus and certainly India. And as I looked about of nations around the world, I saw deep faith from BAPS. And that opportunity was back home in Irving, Texas, that I represented. And Irving, Texas was a burgeoning population of young Hindus who had come to the United States, yes, for the American dream, but more importantly, to bring with them their heritage, their articulation, their intellect, their families, their future. And when I saw this great faith presented to people who had boundless energy and opportunity, but they confined themselves in such a way that they wanted the entire community to build off each other, I knew there was something special. And so when we broke ground in Irving, Texas, years ago, I met people who professed not only a connection here, but an adherence to what the principles that we learned. So it's taken me a while, but I finally have come here and seen not just the devotion and the dedication, but the sacrifice, the subordination of self-interest to the interest of the balance of the world and to this great process that goes on. And it's a forward-looking idea that will live in this world and find itself in balance and opportunity, but it also finds itself in the balance with what Mother Nature gives us, the harmonization, the structure, the teaching, where every one of your swamis go through this process. It is quite literally a devotion to a spirit that they believe in and that I believe the world needs. So, what a great opportunity.
So, like you mentioned, it's like a journey, but I believe that in any journey, the person who undertakes that journey, the traveler, is equally important. So, when I look at you and think about your life, for 28 years you've been in the Congress,
Yes.
but you seem to be a politician with a difference, because you're not just the run of the mill leader, you have courage, you have confidence, and there's a deep compassion in your heart. You're a man of faith. So, personally, I wanted to ask that all these values you have learned from your family or whoever you have learned from. So, who has been a very important part of your life? Who has taught you the importance of all these values that you possess right now?
I am not unlike so many people who saw value in family, who saw value in the balance of a mother and a father. But in my life, my father was a dominant figure. My father took time not only as a father to treat the three boys in a way that they wanted to be treated, but he did it in such a way as to build us up. And he understood that he had three distinctly different boys. And he took us individually as we approached him. I found myself as the last one being married of the three boys. I found myself as living with my father when he moved from El Paso to San Antonio. We developed a deep bond by going to Mount Everest and the Khumbu with each other in 1985. We found time for each other, and he taught me valuable lessons, and we had conversations. As you know, my father served as a federal judge for many years and found himself in possession of listening to things that were right and wrong. And he used his judgment and his articulation to influence many, many lives and communities. And as the chief judge of the Western District of Texas, he had, I think, wise influence. He was a man of discipline. He came from a father who was a preacher. My father, at an early age, had problems where he found himself where he was paralyzed as a result of polio. And he told me a story of when he went to Mayo Clinic at 16 years old and walked in feeling sorry for himself. And he saw people who were deep into polio, and he said he felt ashamed. That is a humbling experience for a 16-year-old. He talked to me about his growth as a person through faith and his confidence in faith. But he also spoke about the confidence that he had of knowing people. And one of the important lessons that I learned from my father when he was FBI director for President Reagan and President Herbert Walker Bush and President Clinton was that he learned that in his role as a leader for America, he would come into contact with other countries. And the world, as it is today, so it was then too. It was divided among people in competition, but also in areas when you're in law enforcement of people who are criminal, people who have a motive for themselves or for their country. And my father told me without question, which I have carried all these years, up to and including when I became a member of Congress, that my time of listening, learning, and understanding India and the Indians and the people, he said that they have deep devotion to not only principles that they believe in and the way they live their life, but also that the way that they deal with other people, that offered a balance, that was trustworthy. And this is one of the stories that he told me, which is why he liked the mountains. and which is why we went to Mount Everest in
So
1985.
how far did you climb up?
Well, we went to about 19.5, what's a little bit of what's called the low law, and
Base camp.
It sits above base camp on the West Ridge, and it was not up the Khumbu. It was up.
Did you in the middle ever think of giving up the climb? Or you
Well-
just went on and on? So how was that?
Well, in 1985, we were not as prepared as people might be today. And there were fewer people. And I well remember being in Kunde, Nepal, with a high fever that I got. And so I had to rehabilitate myself. It's essentially about a month-long climb from when you land at Lukla, from Kathmandu, and then you walk in. And we intentionally did this for your body to acclimatize. Well, so does your mind acclimatize. And so does your mind too come around to the greatness, not only of the avalanche, of the sun, of the change that happens every day, the melting, but it happens as you put yourself in line with what is Sagamantha and the gods of the mountains. And my father taught me how important that was. It's a balance that is controlled by God.
So if you had to pick up, or I force or compel you to identify just one value which is very important to overcome a summit, you're climbing, what would be one value that you need to constantly, arm yourself with?
Well, you need to arm yourself, first of all, with the knowledge that you're treading on someone else's ground. And you don't ever own your ground. It is someone else. It is Mother Nature that controls the wind, the temperature, your climb. And once you put yourself in that circumstance, then you adapt, and then you can make it. But it is an unforgiving place, and those who think they can fool Mother Nature slide down the mountain.
So your oneness, or merging yourself, or having the acceptance of what nature, Mother Nature, or the will of God, some people would call,
It is.
to accept that. So I think, even in life, if you are climbing your way to some success, or maybe in your case elections, or in some people's life maybe attaining some great goal, I think what you just pointed out, that accepting the higher will of nature or God, that He's the all doer, it's very important to allow your complete energies to shine forth.
Perhaps a way I say it, because I do talk to young Boy Scouts and young Scouts girls too, and people, and I talk with them about the acceptance of doing the things that are in the best interest of everybody. And it is a very important process that we call character. And character is that process whereby you give up your own natural advantage to the interest of others. And you think about how others and people may get together. And I think that we live in a competitive world. I live in a competitive world. I spent 16 years at AT&T. I was in a competitive environment. I moved 7 different times. And I was in a competition against other people, not just for jobs, but for opportunities. And so I believe that when you look at the country, when you look at things, if you take people who give up their own self-interest to the subordination of self-interest to the interest of others, you find true, not only character additions to yourself, but a lot of other things come into play. And this is what my father taught me about dealing with India. People from India, they have a thing about them that is a principle. They have an articulation of a balance of their life, and they are worthy not to hold their own ideas, but to hold things that will have true value and meaning. And this is why I have, for all these 28 years, sought out doing business with the policies of India, with the working together, and with the real intent of how India could play a role with the United States. And we have dealt with that, and I dealt with that in politics through your young Prime Minister, Prime Minister Modi. And I felt like that his balance, his belief in people, it meant that he was not going to be more important than they were. And he kept in front of him to march to aspire to the greatness of working together, of not only his own country, but the future of the world.
You know, Pete, I think you have just beautifully summarized one of the core principles of His Holiness Pramukh Swami Maharaj. He often said, "In the joy of others lies our own." This idea of making others happy is more important.
Yeah.
Helping others find their joy is more important. It's like, self is less and society is more important. It's like placing the interests of others over your personal selfish interest. And that's the beauty with which this BAPS organization runs with. Hundreds of thousands of volunteers. Some are doctors, engineers, lawyers, highest profession, people from most affluent families, people from all backgrounds, even the smallest of the small. People from remote tribal villages, they all come, rub shoulder to shoulder, and they perform service for people. Whether it's earthquake, whether it's tsunamis, whether it's a huge hurricane in America, whether it's a boat disaster in Africa, but every different place, whether it's Ukraine, our volunteers were there helping refugees. And I feel that that spirit runs deep in the BAPS organization, and you have directly experienced that. But you have come to the epicenter where selflessness is celebrated. It's the center where sadhus are trained in Saranpur. So if any young person wants to become a monk, there is a training, so he can literally face himself and then overcome those desires and train himself to be selfless and serve. So the core principle is selflessness. So how do you find the training center, you've seen as with an eye of an outsider?
I thought I would find chivalry here. I thought I would find individuals who competed, who were leading, who were showing a pathway, who were taking the least, the most difficult pathway to achieve what they wanted in competition and in leadership and in spirits of showing. And that's not what I found. What I found is it is a community where there is a commonality, that they are a part of a world where they're all brothers, where they're there to help and lend their talent. And I learned here that everyone goes through the same processes. There's no one that says, okay, you don't have, you passed this class. You're already there. No, no, no. The humility of this means that if you are going to get to a place after 7 years of your training, that means you have to set aside what you were and become what we are. And what we are is a very humble organization that sustains itself through love and the character of doing the things that are in front of you. And this is what I have seen. And I see it in your volunteers. I see volunteers who unbelievable adherence to coming to help the faith keep what it's got. I've been to Robbinsville several times. I've been to Irving, Texas. I have been to Sugar Land, Texas, and I have seen the people who deeply believe And the people are not there for any other reason other than to serve and be a part of this. So I'm impressed. But as you said, I had to come here to know more about this. You can describe this, but you have to see it, and the campus and the philosophy and the deepness and enrichment that takes place here is built inside each and every person. 400 men working together for a common purpose beats one leader.
So, as you said, one of the most important part of any spiritual training is how to overcome your ego or I. President Kalam was one of the most celebrated scientists of India, who went on to become the President of India and perhaps one of the most loved presidents that India has ever contributed to the world. And he came exactly where you are seated. This is the place where our spiritual leader Pramukh Swami was seated, and he had written a beautiful book on the life of His Holiness Pramukh Swami.
Yes.
And he came down, he handed the book in his hands, and then he said that you're a great teacher, a teacher who has taught me how to remove I and how to remove me. After the president has achieved everything as the best scientist, the best leader, the best president, and a great leader, he says, a time has come to remove I, that I am nothing, and to remove me. And that's one of the core training after creating almost 2,000 temples. Pramukh Swami himself created 1,200 temples. And now Mahant Swami, under his leadership, there are 2,000 temples and 5,000 or more centers. But you don't see a single expression of ego. So when you met His Holiness Mahant Swami Maharaj, would you describe the feelings you got? Because you have met many spiritual leaders, but when you met him, what are the feelings you got when you met Mahant Swami Maharaj?
He listens. He understands. I do not think this was the first time that I was the first person to approach him where he expressed willingness to engage in my mile of walking together. He walked with me. He understood what I was talking about. And he does care about every person, and every person has value. And he has seen that what sustains itself here are concepts and ideas from sacrifice, of doing things to get in line with, as we've talked about. I talked about Mother Nature. There are a lot of temptations of this world that we can go and grab the shiny object and put ourselves there and tag ourselves. This is where I am. That's not what this is about. It is where we need to be. And you have to break down those barriers, and it requires great discipline, and it requires great adherence. And this is what sets the Swamis apart from the rest of the world, which is why they lead to the best.
So how important do you think are a few Swamis in this society? Because there are just few. But how important do you think their role is in this society?
Well, first of all, they are there for the individual. They're there for the people that they serve, that they help. And this is where I look back at the communities where I have been involved and saw that they are there to take groups of people in the United States who had a dream and a plan to come to the United States as part of their fulfillment of their individual plan. But you see, they bring with them their heritage, their background. They came to America and want to make America better, and to make sure that in that heritage perspective, they have a place where they can be around people in this world that help each other. We all are built up with a larger group, not a smaller group. And when we subscribe to norms and things that put more of an emphasis. Then you take care of your children, you take care of your ideas, you take care of the ways that you want to live your life, and you build a community. This is what the Swamis are exceptional at. They're exceptional at standing up for others, the whole, rather than the one group. And I do have a weekly interaction with someone of this faith, someone who is pushing ideas. And it's never about them, it's always about everyone.
But see, somebody may argue that, the Swamis, they're not married, they don't have a business, they may have little knowledge of the world. And how can, Swamis who have actually given up the world, how can they really transform the world? With what? So how would you answer that?
Well, there are things that are higher elements of character, higher elements, and there are levels of this. And whether it is putting aside words, I, me, and using other words, perhaps it's money. Money has always been, in a capitalist society, a driver for something. I'm not saying you've taken a vow to poverty. I'm saying you have nothing to do with money. You have everything to do with a deep understanding of teaching, of showing, of educating. And this is one of the parts about coming here that's so valuable to me, is to see the sacrifices that take place here and how this organization takes young people that may not have ever had a chance in life based upon their family or where they were born, and giving them the insight and the opportunity, giving them a chance to not just move through their life, but to make the world better. It just over and over and over, and it wasn't about BAPS did it. It was about we got it done with BAPS. It was about a pride of authorship. And I have talked to all the great leaders since I've been here and told them, I really enjoyed the school. And they're like, every person there got a great opportunity. It wasn't about, yes, look at us, how great we are and what we've done. It was doing the right thing. That's pretty powerful.
And I think, as you have said, that it all depends on a deeply spiritual leader. And Mahant Swami Maharaj, you met, you looked into his eyes. And so if I am delving deeper, he's a person who sustains all our faith. When you met a leader of faith, so what did you really see in him?
Well, it's important to know that I've been around many, 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 many leaders. And I've been around people who spouted ideas, and the inconsistencies of their life meant that they became a mirage. They disappeared in front of you. The closer you got, that was not what they really were. There were inconsistencies in their life. There were things that competed against the concept of helping everybody to I or we or me. And I think that the closer you get to the Holy Father, you see the reality of a spirituality where he has given up through his own sacrifice, through his own training, through his own really adherence to this faith. He's given those up, and it is about other people. It is about doing the right thing, regardless of who gets credit for it.
And in conclusion, I also wanted to say that your earlier meetings during this trip to India with the Chief Minister, Deputy Chief Minister, and leaders of Gujarat, and visits with prominent people, you have constantly mentioned one idea, that every night you should get on your knees and pray, because humility is very, very important. So what role does humility play in your life?
Well, humility is important because humility and sincerity run many times at the same intersection. They run together, and I'm in a business where people judge. They judge my content, they judge my word, they judge my actions. And it is inconsistent to be at the same point where people want to trust you, and yet you don't even stand up for consistently for what you believe in and what you've said. So I would say to you that this is where, coming here, I have now met 100 people who know who they know where they are headed, and they know their responsibility. And none of it is about them. It is about what is in the best interest for others, our world, and in adherence to principles that can stand any test.
So, if I had to ask you in summary, how do you think the values of BAPS, which you hold deep to your heart as well, how do you think the values of BAPS can actually help the world become better? Or do you think they can help to make the world better? Or you think, nope, it's
Well,
incorrigible?
some of the most important attributes of success is being able to sustain itself in the midst of not only change, but in the midst of fiery challenges. And I think we are going through a period of time now when you look at the world, and I think we go through decades worth of changes and processes and questions every 2 weeks. There's a new set of paradigms in front of us. And you cannot answer, I think, the call to duty and to leadership and the sincerity that is required if you flip flop and what's okay one time is not okay another time. I think you have to have an adherence to principles. I think you have to have someone who can guide through that. And while we may not like being told no, or we may not being told you can't go do something, that never comes up in the BAPS mind, because the discipline is off doing the right thing for the right reason and making quick decisions, knowing that the greatest good will ultimately be served if you stick to these principles. We will all be judged off character that will either define us and make us or break us. And what a simple concept. It's hard to pull off. So, sir, let me say this. Your organization knows who they know where they're headed, and they know what I call true north is. They know who they are, where they're going, and where they're going to head, and what is required. And few organizations can sustain that as you have done and will continue to do because of this beautiful opportunity that you have to teach and learn and show.
Well, thank you very much for sparing this time and opening your heart. If there's anything else that you want to add or say, because this is going to inspire hundreds and hundreds and in thousands of young people, young minds. And I really wanted to have a completely non-political conversation with you, which really matters in life.
Well, you had it with me. And for those of you who are watching this, whether you be a young boy, a little girl, a parent, a young student, I would encourage you to understand and know that as I grew up as a young man, I wanted to accept the challenges that I considered to be very important. And it was not just about adventure. It was not just about character. It was not about just some adventure that I wanted to go on. It was a commitment and an adherence to a way of life. And I can tell you that BAPS offers the full road for someone to come and accept not only being a Swami, but also being a volunteer, connecting yourself with something that helps other people, that helps your community, that is actually, as I've said, true north, that is the real thing that will make a difference. And I think ultimately, as I was growing up, we heard the terms that we wanted to live a purpose-driven life. Live a life that is worthy, where you can reflect upon it and to know that you bettered a circumstance, that you helped others, and BAPS to go and understand and bring your family, bring your children, bring your marriage to this with an understanding that you can live a life through not just the adherence to principles and ideas, but be a part of a larger group of people who believe they can make the world better. And that is something that I would want for my family, for my children and grandchildren. You're the real deal.
Thank you very much. And I hope you are having a deeply spiritual experience.
Well, I only really want to do well enough to get invited back.
You already are. Thank you.